Newly minted Labour leader Jacinda Ardern has flagged her party's environmental credentials by wading into the water debate today. She says Labour will make commercial water bottlers and irrigation scheme users pay a royalty for the water they use. Farmers and exporters have slammed the policy, saying it opens a can of worms and will put many of them out of business. Anusha Bradley reports.
In her second big policy announcement since becoming leader just over a week ago, Jacinda Ardern says it's only fair consented water users like commercial bottlers and irrigation schemes pay up, like oil and gas companies have to. And while the Green Party wants to charge commercial bottlers a royalty of 10 cents a litre, Ms Ardern is not so keen to put a price tag on it just yet.
We are not setting the royalty here today, but we are differentiating that depending on the water source, the quantity, whether or not it's being used for export offshore versus whether or not it's simply being used in a commercial domestic sense, we will differentiate. So I would liken it to the difference between a royalty on gold and gravel. It will be differentiated.
Jacinda Ardern says royalties will be proportionate and fair, and everyone affected will be consulted to find a way both they and the environment can prosper. But Federated Farmers Water spokesperson Chris Allen says Labour's policy lacks detail and does little to allay farmers' fears.
About 25% of the consumptive take of water in New Zealand is for irrigation. It all comes down to how much you charge and is there any more money in the system for farmers to absorb, and at the moment there is no more money. So something will have to give unless there's a massive surge in overseas prices or something. That's why it's such a complicated beast, and I think personally it's opening a can of worms, and I don't think this has been thought through enough.
The Executive Director of Export New Zealand, Catherine Beard, agrees and says different rates in different parts of the country will not work.
That politicises water allocation, so you get into all sorts of problems if you have politicians deciding what price goes on what bit of water. If you had a particularly dry time because of a drought in Canterbury and you were going to put the price of water up, you can imagine how that would go down. You actually need to have a market mechanism, and we've had a very successful experience with tradable fishing rights, but our point is you have to be very careful how you go about doing that, otherwise it will turn into a Pandora's box.
The Finance Minister Stephen Joyce says Labour's water tax lacks clarity and would hit the regions hard.
I'd say regional New Zealand as a whole would be pretty nervous because the whole plan is to take it to commercial users, which effectively means, in terms of farmers, horticulturalists and grape growers. That's a big deal in regional New Zealand. Think of Hawke's Bay, think of Marlborough, think of Nelson, think of Canterbury, Otago, Bay of Plenty. They'll be very nervous.
The Greens water spokesperson, Catherine Delahunty, says she's pleased to see Labour adopting a policy similar to theirs, and she hopes the 10 cent a litre levy could be negotiated if they both formed a government. Jacinda Ardern also announced that Labour will scrap the government's $480 million fund to pay for new irrigation schemes. That was music to the ears of Greenpeace's Executive Director, Russell Norman.
The irrigation fund is being used as a government subsidy to increase water pollution, a $500 million government subsidy to increase water pollution. So get rid of that is a good step forward as well.
The Green Party will announce its freshwater policy tomorrow. In Auckland for Checkpoint, Anusha Bradley.